For many of the biggest names in the music industry, like legends, this place is the best recording studio in the world. But in 2018, they nearly lost it.
This is the house we first showed you. It is now gone. The one next door, fully involved too. And right across the street, another total loss.
A couple of months ago, we came to Malibu to do a cribs with Jeff Basker, and what I found fascinating about that was it was peering into the world of rock, pop and hip-hop, a world that I'm less familiar with. So we thought we'd come back to Malibu and this time visit a truly unique recording environment where the world of film and television composition has collided with that of rock, pop and hip-hop. You know me, I love a good shed to work in. Let's meet chef proprietor Richard Gibbs of Woodshed Recording. It looks incredible.
Oh man, I just about had it. Now you had to come interrupt me.
It could have been a hit. How you doing, Richard? So good
Welcome,
to meet
Richard.
you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming
This
on
looks
in.
Absolutely
Welcome to
stunning.
Composers Anonymous.
So, I mean, there's so many stories about this place, namely a horrendous fire that happened a few years back. But I'd love to go back to origins, because you are, in fact, a successful film and TV composer. How did you end up with a studio that catered to the likes of Coldplay and Barbra Streisand and Damon Albarn?
Well, first I take issue with the word successful. I am a film and television composer. I guess I'm successful in that I've been able to make a living at it.
Yeah,
right.
That for me is the definition. Absolutely.
Well,
it's a very rare thing.
Relatively speaking,
Yeah.
I acknowledge that. I built this place for me. I'd spent my life in recording studios all around the world, recording different ensembles and doing different things. And this was my dream studio, incorporating all of the things I'd seen from studios everywhere and things I'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a place that inspired me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't care about what the technicians had to say. I would listen to what they had to say, and I said, okay, very good, but I'm not doing that. I'm doing this instead. Mm-hmm. There was no way we were going to cut that view.
No.
Right? So,
and that breadth.
And you can't have that view without glass. And glass is highly reflective. It's problematic. We recognize that. So we dealt with it in a lot of subtle ways. So it is live, but it's not an unpleasant liveness. It's not like being in a gymnasium. Mm-hmm. You know, if you look at the ceiling, all these rafters, this place is radically over-designed. That breaks up sound waves. You don't have just a single plane that the waves are bouncing off of. One of the basic ideas when I was dealing with my architect and my contractor was the studio has to be amazingly flexible. It's got to be able to do a lot of different things. Two, it had to be aesthetically beautiful and inspiring. Three, I didn't want to see the technology. I live and die by that sword, but I hate technology at the same time. And I wanted all that hidden as much as possible, which meant hiding wires and everything else. So all of this gear is on wheels. Everything moves, right?
Really?
Everything.
Even
everything.
the
speakers, the console, that piece, the piano, everything is on wheels.
How is that possible?
All the cabling exists in triplicate underneath the floor. You can just drop the cables out of the back of this and that, drop them in the floor, cover it back up, roll them over into that corner. And then there's another set of cables you plug in. The reason for that is now where this track comes in. Now you can assemble different recording environments depending on what what the ensemble is you're recording with these walls. Sorry, I don't have Vanna White here today, so I'm doing it myself. Well, I'll go all the way. So you see there's a double track, right? So you can do two sets of walls. I can pull them all the way across. There's a rubber bulb seal on that side. It seals against the mahogany there. Hopefully scares my dog outside. And then there's a drop seal right here. If you look right there, that drops against the ground. So now you've got, and there's 2 layers of glass here. So each one of these panels, I wouldn't say it's entirely soundproof, but it's very sound resistant. And you put up a whole wall of that, and I can put a second wall up, and now you've got an airlock. And it is as soundproof as a hard-walled recording studio at that point.
Is this a custom system, or?
Yeah. And then you put another wall here or another wall there.
Gotcha.
Now, with all this stuff on wheels, you can completely morph the whole studio. There's also 2 more isolation booths below the deck.
Okay.
So the Leslie for the B3 is buried down there. It's half subterranean. Soundproof as hell down there. It's already mic'd up and ready to go. You fire up the organ, you can't hear it until you open up the mics.
Wow.
And there's the other cabinet has a guitar cabinet in it, so a guitar player can come in, plug into the wall, the sound comes out down there, you turn on the mics, he can walk around the room, he can be next to the drummer, next to the piano player, there's complete isolation, yet he can get as close as he needs to and communicate.
Wow.
So when you start to wrap your head around all this, there's probably about a dozen configurations to this room of different ways you can work it. The other part is in there, that little office entryway doubles as another vocal booth. But if you really want to have fun, come here, I'll show you more. Come here, we're walking. So even the bathroom, which the camera isn't picking up just now, is right here. There's a headphone and mic jack there as well.
Amazing.
Because tile has a completely different reverberant sound, a different way to go about it. Now, Christian, have a little more fun. Put one hand on each rail. A little lower, pull it back. Oh. Walk on up.
Oh, this is so cool.
So that's another ISO booth, but we also use it as a sleeping loft. Bono used to like to go up there and write lyrics and hang out.
This is just awesome.
It's also my doghouse. Thank goodness I'm in good shape with my wife, but it would be my doghouse.
And beautiful engineering.
Yeah, we had a phenomenal carpenter that did this work.
I bet engineers, when they come in here, are a bit flummoxed.
Very well put. Flummox is a good word for it, yeah. Musicians come in and go, oh my God, it's a playground. And the engineers go, what the fuck? You know, I'm so used to, you know, big speakers in soffits in a room that's just been treated for them. Studios are typically built by and for engineers and acousticians.
Who, dare I say it, I've worked with many wonderful engineers, but occasionally you'll find someone who's a bit master and commander. And it's like, yeah, but it's this person's work that you're capturing. It's not your work.
No, and I didn't realize this till later. I designed this for me, you know, for my purposes. I wasn't trying to defy rules, but I did. Mm-hmm. I'd spent my life as a session player, as a keyboardist in Boingo, as a composer and a conductor and everything else. I was always going into the engineer's domain. Mm-hmm. It was their space. It was their home. I'm just an invited guest at best.
It's a weird dynamic, that, isn't it?
It's wrong. Yeah. And I flipped it on its head, but I can't claim to have thought it through like that. That's just what happened. Yeah. And so now the musicians come in and go, I'm home. Yeah. And the engineer's like, wait a minute, do I have to take my shoes off? You know, they're the ones that have to take a second to adjust. Whereas typically in a recording studio, musicians have to adjust to the space. Yeah. And here it's the reverse.
Should we have a look at some of the kit? I mean, I'm familiar with the ATCs, but I've not seen these speakers before.
They're called Augsburgers. And I had all these producers and engineer friends come here, and we spent a day. I had speakers in a semicircle, basically going from this wall all the way around to that wall. We had stacked up speakers.
Wow.
and everybody could hear all their favorite music or whatever was their critical listening music. It's amazing how many people use Asia by Steely Dan.
Really?
That's the test, the test music that everybody uses is Asia. And I would come to the Augsburgers, point to them, and suddenly I'm not listening to bass response or reverb tails or anything else. I'm just like, oh my God, I love this record. I'm just loving the music. It was an emotional response.
Yes. I say this all the time. It's not how it sounds, it's how it makes you feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this whole studio is designed with that in mind.
Yeah.
It's how it makes you feel. And these speakers are another example of that. This place is kind of a proving ground for different gear, because we go out and find stuff that other people aren't using.
Yeah.
And we've helped launch some companies, help them get going.
I bet. I imagine the SSL is more of a recent acquisition.
Yes, it was actually Rick Simpson from Coldplay, their engineer and producer. Rick just said, this thing is like, it's just plug and play. Any engineer will know how to work it.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. So I bought it, plugged it all in, and immediately the room sounded better because I used the summing amp and the monitor section of this, and I was able to get rid of the other gear.
I noticed you've got one of those new nano screens. I forked out for one of those recently.
Well, again, I'm not the engineer, so that's for them. I don't really care about that. It's like, does that make you happy? Are you happy now? Okay, there you go. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of the gear. It's like, I just look at my guys and go, are you happy now? Okay, shut the fuck up. And I can let me make music,
And a lovely selection of outboard. Again,
in that category of like trying something new, this thing is, people don't know about this piece of gear. It's thermionic culture.
That make the Culture Vulture.
That's right. Yep. They make the Culture Vulture and a bunch of other gear. But this is their pre, called the Early Bird. And it's a tube pre, but again, we did a mic pre shootout years ago. And the one that consistently, on all categories, on all cards, was always in the top 3, and most of the time number 1, was this one.
Wow, I've never seen one before.
No, they're not common. And it's a brilliant sounding mic pre.
So when bands come in with their engineers and bring kit, because everything's hidden, is it easy for them to
Very easy. Everything's accessible. It's a standard patch bay.
Okay.
And all the wiring that goes to, and by the way, down in the basement is all of the computers, and we use the Burl converters, which is, again, blew everything else out of the water. They're a bit more boutique-y, but they're amazing sounding. But that's all down there. Wow. So you can access any of it remotely through this cable system. These conduits that go under the floor, they're 8-inch. I've always said, if I had a trained Chihuahua, he could run wire for me under them.
And got lots of lovely keyboard instruments and, yeah, what's this? It's a Celeste?
Oh, that's a Celeste. Play it?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay to play.
It's beat to crap, but it's an old Celeste. It needs a bit of repair.
I see 2 lovely examples of a Hammond and a beautiful Fender Rhodes that looks in amazing nick.
Well, that was the guts of that piano I bought when I was in high school and getting ready to go off to Berklee College of Music. And the practice rooms at Berklee were down this flight of stairs, like a long flight of stairs down to the basement. And I didn't have roadies, so I just dragged it down the stairs and just shredded the thing. Just like all the Tolex was gone and wood was broken on it, but it still worked. It's the best sounding Rhodes I know, but it looks like crap. So I took it to a place called Custom Vintage Keyboards, and they made a new case for it. But it's the guts of that old Rhodes.
Wow. And you've got some, dare I say it, very sexy looking guitars here. Are you a guitarist?
No. I mean, I can play enough to torture a guitarist. Like, I'll pick it up, say, hey, play it like this. And I'll go, oh my God, Richard, give me the guitar. And I'll play it right. But I write with guitar a lot. I like writing with instruments I'm not that good at.
Oh yes, that was a
Right.
John Lennon thing, wasn't it? If you're not inspired, pick up something you can't play.
I never heard that, but yes,
Yeah.
yes, it makes perfect sense. Guitars have all. I've played guitars since I was a kid,
Yeah.
but I've never played it well. I've had maybe 2 lessons on it.
Okay.
But piano was always my instrument.
So it's an eclectic selection of guitars.
This one is a 1959 Hofner, and it's called the Club 60. The Club 40 was the little brother to this. It was just a single pickup. That was John Lennon's first guitar, was the Club 40.
Okay.
And you can see early pictures of him with that. It's a hollow body.
Oh wow.
So it weighs nothing.
Oh wow.
And it has this wonderful sound that's, when you're recording, you use a Les Paul to get chug and chunk and that, and you use a telly to get funk and treble and all that. Each guitar has its thing. What's wonderful about this thing is that no matter what the track is, no matter what the style is or whatever, it just has a way of fitting in.
Okay.
It sonically is somewhere between an acoustic guitar and an electric. And it has this kind of wonderful dead jazz sound that's really cool. So that's that one.
Amazing. My agent also runs a recording studio, and she would really approve of this. She has a strict no sofa rule at the back of the room.
Me too. There is one thing though, one nod to that. So again, it's the whole thing about this studio. I wanted everything to have multiple functions.
Yeah.
So it's a chair. Yeah, it's kind of a couch. You can chill out if you want. So.
Yeah, she always thinks it's a bad energy to have someone snoring at the sofa behind you.
100% with her.
Yeah.
She's completely right. Both my percussionists teach me how to properly play the gong.
Right.
There are 2 different, like most people just go bam, and they hit it right in the middle, and yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
But it's more fun if you do what I'm going to teach you to do right now. So, and then there is a postscript to it, and I'll show you. So first off, come on over.
Try not to fall into the cart.
No.
Right.
Yeah, grab the mallet.
Surprisingly heavy.
Yes, and then use both hands and very lightly tap it around on the brass, not in the middle.
So you get it moving.
Yes, it's going to get the gong to blossom. Keep going, and harder and harder. And you can hear the overtones come up. Harder. Now smack it.
That low note is amazing.
Yeah, if you put your belly right here, you feel it in your gut. Oh, now you deadened it. I just killed it.
That belly was always going to deaden it.
Now, here's the other thing. The fish are trained to the gong. So if you look behind you, they're going, where the fuck is my food? So here you go.
Oh, how cool is that?
So you have to feed the fish now.
All of this? That's
Yeah,
so cool.
however you wish.
Wow. Such beautiful things. Of all the things I was going to be doing today,
You didn't think you'd be doing
feeding koi carp was not one of the things I thought was on the agenda. Such a remarkable space, but you nearly lost it, didn't you? In the sense of it came close to being...
I assumed that it was lost.
Oh, really?
During the Woolsey fire, the end of 2018, we saw it coming, but this area called Point Doom had never burned, never. This fire, by the time it came up over the mountains from Calabasas, was 14 miles wide. Wow. It was massive, it was a monster. But it still looked like it was going to miss us. The prevailing winds were blowing it past us and looked like it was going to go over Zuma Beach and out over the Pacific and go out. And at the last second, the wind shifted and brought it right to us. And my wife and I were here until about 15 minutes before the fire hit our house. And we just thought, okay, well, and we bailed. We got out of here. As we left, we we went the back way because the flames were coming up here. There was a wall of flame and smoke coming up the street. And we could see our neighbor's house on fire and the gully on fire, you know, just below the studio. So we thought, well, we know it's going to hit. One of our other neighbors owned a bed and breakfast down in Venice, and he said, just go there, crash there. So we went there, and somebody sent us, our son sent us a clip from the news of our house on fire.
Oh, man.
So we just saw the house burning down. Oh, that was heartrending. So we assumed the studio was gone too because we knew the direction of the fire. And if the house is gone, the neighbors' houses were gone, definitely the studio's gone. It's called the woodshed.
Yeah.
Right? For a reason. And it's finished with marine spar varnish, which is highly flammable. So we knew it was gone. We went to bed that night like thinking, well, maybe it's time to move to Ireland, or I could retire, go to Portugal, collect my insurance money and bail. And the next morning, our son got back in with a bunch of his friends, and they formed a fire brigade. And they were putting out fires all over Malibu. And somebody had sent us a picture of our house, which was just rubble. And the gate was completely gone, and it was just a picture from the street. But in the picture, I'm looking at it with my wife, and it's like through the haze, it looked like Dresden in World War II, right? Through the haze, I saw this kind of shape through this coral tree. I saw this roof shape, and it was just black, and it was really distant. And I said, that looks like the roof line of the studio. And I'm thinking, well, maybe, you know, some of the beams survived, right? Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I knew, like half an hour later, I get a picture from my son. And even now, I like start tearing up thinking about it. He sent this picture of our son-in-law, and another one of their friends standing out here in the yard in front of the studio, and my son's holding it up, and he's wearing a gas mask and all this stuff. You could just see his eyes beaming, and he's like, look, studio. And it was completely intact. And then he shot a video where he walked around the yard and, you know, showed that all the neighbors' houses burning. You know, there's Brennan's house is gone, and there's still gas fires and all this stuff. And then he brings the iPhone around, and he said, this is a quote that stuck with me, the fucking studio. So this is always known as the fucking studio.
But do you know why?
Yes.
Okay.
100% now. You know, everybody, it's the gods, it's the music gods, it's, you know, it was meant to be, you know, everybody's ascribing it to all this stuff. And at first I was like, well, maybe, I don't know. But now we've learned very specifically. I came back in also the day after the fire, just later than Keegan did. And I walked around the perimeter of this, just unbelieving what I was seeing. And there were embers all the way around the perimeter of the studio, thousands of embers. And it clearly just bounced off the walls and dropped. So two things saved this studio. And we went into detail on my podcast about it. Mm-hmm. One is my wife's garden. And she's not a gardener in the traditional sense. She has studied, has certificates in permaculture design, regenerative agriculture. She's an advocate for a group called Kiss the Ground that's basically saving the world. This soil around here is amazingly rich. Mm-hmm. And the roots go down 3 feet deep, whereas in an average lawn, the roots go maybe 4 or 5 inches. But when those roots go that deep, you get this infrastructure down there called a soil carbon sponge. That soil carbon sponge will hold up to 30 times its weight in water. And you wrap your head around that. It's just holding it. It's this reservoir 3 feet deep of water. So none of the stuff around the studio, none of the greenery burned. There is a drone shot that was taken a week after the fire. And it shows green all the way up right to our fence line all around the studio. Well, that tells you there's something special going on with that garden because it didn't burn. So that, and the other thing is, it turns out if you want to have a fireproof structure or a house, build your house to the standards of a recording studio. Because what's the most salient factor of a recording studio is that it's soundproof.
Yeah.
Well, what makes it soundproof?
The air's not getting in and out.
Airtight, yeah. Not a single, not even a gnat could get in this place. Ants could not enter here. We were so careful about everything, every joint, everything. Every wall is super thick and double insulated, and we followed all that part. We listened to studio designers and we did it right. So those embers couldn't get in. And houses, structures typically burn not from the outside in, from the inside out. Mm-hmm. Even though there's a fire raging outside, but if an ember gets inside into an oxygen-rich environment and a fuel-rich environment like this would be, it'll just explode, but it couldn't get in. So it just moved on. We had neighbors across the gully who watched the fire literally go over the studio. They couldn't see the studio and they assumed it was consumed, and then it kept going and the studio was intact.
It's just an amazing story.
So,
wow.
So we could teach classes in fire prevention at this point. And my son has since created the Point Duke Fire Brigade for real. There's a fire truck on. I don't know if you saw that when you came in, that they own.
Wow.
That is, ancillary to the fire department.
And I think it's so beautiful that your wife is doing that type of gardening, and it's like nature has told you, it hasn't punished you. It's like you've done something right.
Well, again, you're being metaphysical, but yes. But I agree. It's the combination of the two things. Yeah. It's her work and the construction of the studio saved it when everything else around it burned. Everything.
Wow. I bet you felt vindicated for being so meticulous with its construction.
Well, the thing is, I went to bed that night thinking, the surf is really good in Portugal, Ireland.
You'd already start dreaming.
You know what? We're out of here. We're out. And I was in complete shock.
Yeah.
Right? And the shock didn't hit me till Keegan sent me that picture of the studio, and I started bawling like a little boy in the lobby of this B&B. It was like, oh my God. And it's like all of a sudden everything hit me. And I was like, ah. And that's where, okay, I can't retire yet. I got to keep at it. So here we are, still doing it.
Talking of retirement, I saw a YouTube video with you talking about the piano being your retirement option.
Yes. I just had this wild hair of an idea to have my buddy Jonathan Davis sign it when we were working on, it might have been Korn Unplugged or Queen of the Damned, one of them. And I said, John, sign my piano. He goes, what, really? I said, yeah. And I gave him a Sharpie and he signed it. And then ever since then, everybody who's come in, if they record, they have to actually work here. Then we hand them a Sharpie and say, do you want to sign the piano?
Great.
Go for it. So it's chock full of signatures now of everybody under the sun.
Did Streisand sign it?
Oh, not only, there's a whole story about that. So, she's a very particular human, right? She has a reputation for not suffering fools gladly.
Oh, really? And
we, as a staff, everybody here, generally I'm not in the studio at all when people rent it. I go surfing, I fuck off. But she was here, and I came as she was leaving just to say bye, thanks for coming and all that. And she just had time for me. She loved this place. And I always tell my staff, no pictures, never take pictures, never ask for autographs. No, of course not. You don't do that. Very unprofessional. But her engineer, right when she was leaving, I said, oh, Barbara, and I handed her a Sharpie, would you mind signing the piano, if you want? And she goes, oh, and she looked inside it and saw, Tom Petty and everybody. Sure, I'll sign it. She leans in and signs it, and her engineer had a nice camera. He goes, oh, wait, I missed it, because I want a picture of that. And she goes, well, okay. He goes, do it again. Now, she had leaned way back into the back corner, and I just had this vision of this piano lid decapitating her. So she's leaning in like this, doing it. I was like, no, oh my God, no, please, I don't want to be the person that kills Barbra Streisand. But she did it again. She comes in and leans in again and looks at the camera. So that picture ended up being on the liner of the CD, is her signing this piano.
Oh, brilliant.
But it's actually similar to the flags at Iwo Jima. That was a reenactment.
Brilliant stuff. Well, Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us in
Pleasure's
here.
mine.
It's just such a remarkable space. I was just going to end on, so what was your preferred track for the speaker shootout Steely Dan as well, or was it another one?
A bunch. I did a bunch of stuff. I had played some Stravinsky. I played some of my own scores, if I remember right. Weather Report is my favorite band of all time.
Which track from Weather Report?
The whole album of Black Market.
Black Market is amazing.
I love that album. Yeah. Tailspinning I like too, but I'm reading the official book about Weather Report. It's really good. It's a great book. But yeah, I don't remember everything I played, but I played a bunch of stuff.
My track when I'm testing out speakers and acoustics is As I Come Back by Busta Rhymes. I'd really like to hear what your track is. Put it in the video description down below. Please do subscribe if you haven't done already.
Busta Rhymes?
Yeah, Busta Rhymes has got a fat bass. And it's got very stereo.
Okay.
Lots of these
I'm talking Weather Report, Stravinsky. Nothing against Busta, but come on. All right.
Subscribe if you haven't done. There's more of these coming up. And one of these for Richard and this wonderful space. Ding that bell if you want to be notified the next time we put a video up. See you next time. And thanks again, Richard.
Adios.